there's always a number two who's waiting to become number one. You said you started your business young. We started yogurt when we were 25.
Oh,
right?
you were super young too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like there was a shortage of digital marketing agencies out there when we started it. We just thought that we could do better than a lot of them, and then we would work on trying to be the best out of all of them. And that's a never-ending battle. I think if you're starting a business, there has to be some degree of ego there to say, this is something that I believe I can do. But I think the lesson is mostly to also stay humble at the same time and be like, I believe in myself and I can get there. But then the other part of it is actually, I'm not the best. I don't know everything. I need help. And then working really hard to continuously be number one. And even when you are number one, then it becomes, how do you stay number one without ego?
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. Ego
Totally.
has
Knife edge.
Yes, ego has that like self-belief part, which you need in order to do great things, whether it be the fastest runner, best biologist, or a kick-ass entrepreneur. But ego also has, if it gets too big, the balloon gets too inflated, it can pop. And when it pops, you stop rising, you start falling. And it's because you're not trying anymore. But if it's at the right, just that delicate balance, it can keep rising at the right pace. Then that's ego.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think you just have to be like in check with reality as well. I love when Jeff Bezos came out and said, Amazon's going to go bankrupt. And everyone was like, sorry, what? Like all the shareholders were like, sorry, I actually have a couple questions on that front. What do you mean it's going to go bankrupt? And he was like, it's going to be the same with every company ever. Amazon isn't a forever business. We're not going to be number one forever. And one day someone is going to beat us and we will not be the best anymore. And we will cease to be a company at some point, possibly while I'm still in charge. Now, admittedly, he said that, I think it was like within the last year or two. And right now, Amazon accounts for 51 cents out of every dollar spent on e-commerce globally.
Oh my God.
So half of e-commerce around the world, Amazon is responsible for. And he still came out and said, just by the way, we're going to get beaten. And I think that kind of shows that it doesn't make a difference how big you are. You have to be a realist about the world and what's happening around you, and that no matter how big you get, there's always someone who's going to be number two who's kind of gunning for your spot. We did some work with a company that did like custom-made suits. And so when we did that research, what was interesting is that they had constantly felt that their competition were other businesses that made custom-made suits, which makes sense, right? That is, if someone wants custom, someone wants custom. But what actually came out of it was that most people will try and go and buy off the rack first. Then what they find is they can't find what they need off the rack because either they have like a slightly like difficult body shape to buy off the rack.
They have a vision in their head of what they
or they couldn't find the right color or whatever it was. They couldn't find exactly what they were looking for. So they go and try and buy off the rack first. Then they can't buy off the rack. And then they go custom. So what happened is all of a sudden your competitor set has changed. Because instead of just being like, oh, it's all the custom-made suits makers that are out there, it's suddenly Maya and David Jones and Hugo Boss and whoever else might be kind of involved in that. But that's where people are going first. So that's actually who you need to beat before you beat the other custom suit makers. You need to convince someone not to even bother to go and look at off the rack because they're not going to find what they want and you can do a better job for cheaper.
And by doing so, you literally eliminate your most direct competition or your most comparable competition, the other custom suit people, because they're going straight to you rather than going through the typical, I guess, funnel process to them. Yeah.
So, asking who your competitors are so that you can start to understand how you communicate to your customers is important. Because now you're changing your messaging a little bit to say, well, this is why we're better than off the rack. And so if you can take someone through that education process, you already then have built that trust with them. They're much more likely to shop with you than another custom suit maker anyway, because you're the one that provided that education.
It's also a good way to really understand how good your brand is. Like if you're a marketing agency, if you asked, who did you compare me to? And they compared you to other marketing agencies just in general some were much bigger, some was small, some had nothing to do with whatever your niche was.
Different services, yeah.
Whereas if they compare you to other agencies of a similar size that specialize in a very similar industry, for example, then you know that your brand is communicated well, because not perfect because they're still comparing you, but well, because at least you're aligned to what you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, even when you're kind of talking about comparing digital experiences, we speak to customers and they say, well, if you look at our website and then you look at a competitor website, we're doing really well. Like we're miles ahead of our competitors from a digital perspective. And we're like, okay, that's an interesting perspective, but people aren't comparing you to your competitors. They compare you to the best digital experiences in the world. If I go to the Apple website and think that you are absolutely love what they do, and then I come to, I don't know, a company that is like a law firm or something like that, and they go to that website and it looks like it was built the day the internet was created. All of a sudden, you're not being compared to the other lawyers that you compete with. You're being compared to the other websites that people have been to. And so your experience is actually subpar, great for your industry, but subpar by like global
Overall.
standards. Exactly. So is someone going to be happy with that? No, they expect better. Customers and consumers in general have very high expectations and sometimes are unreasonable in what they want. We have a very heavy focus on the bottom of the funnel. So
Why is that? Why as opposed to the top?
So eConsultancy released a report that said for every $92 that companies spend on driving traffic to their website, they only actually spend $1 on converting that traffic. So if you think about that as like that disparity, I think there's so much competition to get someone's attention, right? Especially during COVID, all of a sudden, people who weren't advertising online are all online. Everyone's got a content strategy. Everyone wants to say, times are tough and we're here to support you. And, we all saw every brand in the world like had those messages go out.
All those annoying emails from all these
Totally.
companies
This is
telling
how
you
we're working through it and all the rest of it. And that's great. You have to remember, Google itself as a business is a publicly traded company. They have shareholders. So they need to constantly show revenue growth and profitability. So they're always going to push and favor their own channels that deliver revenue, right? They're paid channels. So that system is built on getting more and more people into the top of the funnel to compete on price, which drives the cost of that traffic higher and makes it more and more difficult ultimately for people to compete. So it's more crowded at the top of the funnel than it ever has been. It's more expensive at the top of the funnel than it ever has been. And ultimately, you don't have a lot of control because everyone here was fine until Amazon came into the country, and then they understood that Amazon has much bigger budgets than we do. And eventually, they're going to start catching up and they're going to eat into our market share. You can't control that. What you can control is when someone lands on your website, you have 100% control over the experience that they have. Whether or not your website is fast, whether or not the content is good, whether you have the features and functionality that they expect, whether it has a logical flow, whether or not the checkout experience is easy, or whether or not, the inquiry process is easy. You control every one of those aspects. And so people are so focused on the traffic numbers, but as far as we're concerned, traffic without conversion is a vanity metric. You're just saying we're driving traffic for the sake of traffic. But the only way your business grows is if you make $1. And the only way you make $1 is if someone either buys something or if they inquire or they leave their details in some way that allows you to continue communication. Conversion is king. All right? It's the only way that your business grows. And so the reason that we focus so much on the bottom of the funnel is that, again, we're a performance agency. People pay us to make money and to make more money than what they're spending with us. They're not making more money than what they're spending with us. What was the point in hiring us in the first place? Right? Again, we're not here to just drive more traffic. Traffic can lead to conversions. There's absolutely no question about that. If your conversion rate stays steady and I double your traffic, I've doubled your business. But if I can double your conversion rate and double your traffic at the same time, how much more effective are you? Because at that point, rising tide lifts all boats. Your conversion rate goes up, all channels improve performance.
Or double your conversion rate and not increase your traffic. And so you didn't spend more money on getting the traffic, but you earned double the money.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's multiple levers you can pull. And so I think we're focused there because a lot of agencies aren't.
So what are some key features a great website should have? The little things. I'm talking little things.
I think clarity more than anything else. Basically, if you land on if you're on a laptop, you open up someone's website, you look at it for 5 seconds on the homepage, and then you close it, you should be able to answer who they are, what they do, and what they should do next, right? So there should be like a really clear hierarchy so that a consumer has total clarity, because a lot of brands make it unnecessarily difficult for the customer to do what it is that they came to the website to do.